This is the Everything Weight Loss podcast with Shari Ware, where we talk about everything, all things, anything to do with weight loss, health, and wellness. Today, we're talking to Lucy Faulconer again, who is a leadership coach, coaching people's way of being so they can achieve a high level of performance in life through awareness, integrity, and effectiveness. She's trained as an ontological coach, and this is the approach she brings to her clients. And today, we're specifically going to talk about the being profile. So, Lucy, first of all, welcome back. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you, Shari. Great to be here with you.
And tell us, what is the being profile? What does it do? What are the benefits? Tell us everything.
Okay, so as an ontological coach, I was looking out there at what is in the market at the moment as profiling tools. And this is the first ontological coaching based tool. So there's nothing like this in the market, and it's being created here in Australia. That's pretty awesome. And what the being profile is, it's a set of questions that you answer for yourself, and it gives you a profile around what are the ways of being how do you relate to those ways of being that are in the profile, and given that, how might they be impacting your performance in life? So it's really, when we say it's a profiling tool, I consider it more of a transformational tool, because as you remember when we spoke last time, it all starts with awareness, and this profiling tool will give you a level of awareness around things that you won't normally ask yourself. So it will talk about, so I'll explain what the main framework is. So you will have 3 meta factors that are awareness, integrity, and effectiveness. So it will give you, after you've answered these questions, a health score around what your awareness, for example, is in life, and awareness is something that you are committed to and that you are intentionally doing as part of your life. So it will give you a score from 1 to 10 in awareness, the same in integrity, and the same in effectiveness. And then it will open up to 4 moods or drivers. And moods, those are vulnerability, fear, anxiety, and care. And what these moods or drivers, the scores that it gives you, it's not if you have anxiety or you don't, because that's a human experience. We all experience anxiety at some moments in our life. It's present in our lives, isn't it? Yeah. So what it gives you, it's depending on your relationship to those 4 moods or drivers, is how much do they stop you or move you forward when making decisions and taking action. So for example, in the presence of anxiety, are you able to take action and make decisions, or will you hold back? And then after you look at the moods and drivers, it opens up into 16 ways of being. And some of them are authenticity, responsibility, commitment, love, partnership. And when you open each of these up, the conversation is so deep and personal, because it's your own experience with these ways of being.
Wow.
You can only know what your experience of commitment is, or your experience with love, or your experience with responsibility. And then it goes on and shows you 7 ways of being that are secondary, that people can observe. So for example, your level of assertiveness, of confidence, and yeah, more. There's lots in it, but what I find so exciting is the conversation that it allows with people, because it's such a deep dive.
Yeah, it sounds like it could answer a lot of questions for people around why they do what they do. Would you say that's the case?
Absolutely, because what it gives you is, is an internal experience of what's going on in the inside of what's showing up on the outside. So you can say, okay, I'm doing this, I'm not doing that, I'm not moving forward in my career, for example, or I'm not being able to fulfill in certain goals I have. But what's behind that, that's what the conversation with the profile will give you. And that's why I'm so excited about it, because when you go and look at a whole lot of, 360s, that can be awesome for many reasons, but it doesn't take you into the conversation of why is this happening to you. So those behaviors that you see in people, what's behind those behaviors? And I feel the being profile is the first thing I've seen that allows me to go straight into that conversation with a client.
And why is that important? I already can think of lots of ways why that's important, but I'd love to hear what you say about that.
Why I feel it's important, because you can work on the behaviors in each behavior and spend a whole lot of time on those, and they will only shift that behavior. Okay. When you go and talk about what's behind that, what are your ways of relating to certain things? So for example, to responsibility or to your own authenticity, what's your relationship to that? You will tap into a different level of conversation that it's what you call like under the iceberg, the mindset, all that deeper, more transformational conversation that will have a ripple effect in a whole lot of behaviors that you can't maybe know for sure which ones they're going to be, because you're going to be tapping into the deeper things that are allowing you to be or not be who you truly feel that you are, and that you want to show the world that you are.
So this sounds like it would be something that would give people a lot of those aha moments that that really help us to move forward in our lives. And also for me, it brings up that when you know why you do something, it's easier to find ways. If it's something that's not serving you, it's easier to find ways to get around that, or it's easier to find solutions that are going to help move you forward when you know what you're up against. Is that a way that it helps people?
Absolutely. It's definitely the why conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the why leads to the how, which is a much better question for us to be asking ourselves, is how can I, whatever we want to achieve?
And when, like, why I can sort of vouch for this is because I've done a lot of work on myself. Since I started out as a coach, I've always had coaches supporting me along the way, and different kinds of coaches that have challenged me in different ways. But when I did the profile, it took me straight to a conversation that I wasn't even aware of, that those were the root causes that were stopping me from achieving and being the person that I knew in the inside I could be. So for example, for me, vulnerability, that's something I've been working on with myself, because if you let me read to you what it says about vulnerability. So think about vulnerability. It's the driver is impacted by the concerns you have with respect how others may respond to you in different situations. So vulnerability is how we feel when confronted or exposed to perceived threats, ridicules, attacks, or harm of emotional and physical natures. So when I'm exposed to certain things that I don't know the outcome, or that I'm not sure how I'm going to be perceived, I can shy away. So it will stop me from stepping up into certain things. And if I work on that, it doesn't matter what situation. It's not in work, it's not in my personal life, it's my relationship to those situations, no matter where they are.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't have the clarity around that until I did the profile. I thought, okay, if I work on this score, that will impact my effectiveness in life.
Okay.
And it will also impact my authenticity on how I can show up. as myself, being authentic.
So it gives you different scores on the different areas, so you could see what is your weakest link, I guess, and start working there. Is that how you can use it?
Yes, so it will give you a score from 1 to 10, and it will show you where you have a lower score. And the score, like, there's no judgment, there's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong. It's just your experience with that way of being, or in this case with that driver. And it's your experience can be 1 today, and then in a year's time it could be different, because we're not fixed in a certain type of personality. Also, that so many other profiles like put you in a box in terms of what kind of personality you are. That's not the conversation here. It's how you're relating to this, and if you shifted that, what would be possible?
Yeah.
Like what would be possible in your life if you shifted, even if it's from an 8 to a 10 in, for example, in partnership, or in gratitude, or in authenticity? What would be possible for you? And that's a great conversation, I think, to have.
Awesome. And so for people who are always looking to improve, it's not that we're broken, it's not that we need to be fixed, it's just about, I feel that part of the reason why we're here is continuous, I call it CANI, continuous and never-ending improvement.
I love that.
I didn't come up with that, but I the first time I heard it, I thought, oh, that's awesome, I love that.
Yeah.
And when I'm, giving myself a score on various things, I don't ever give myself a top score, and even my aim is never a top score, because I want to always, I just believe, it's my belief that there's always a way that we can improve, and that I see that as a positive thing. So it sounds to me like this is a tool to help you to identify places where you can improve that maybe you weren't aware that it would benefit you to, and then do you have specific tools to then implement to help people do that?
Well, like what you said at first about always looking to improve, absolutely, because the situations in our life also change. So we have new challenges every time we achieve one thing, then we're on to the next thing, and it's all about having the best time you can while you're doing things. And while you're in your work or in your relationships, it's how can I think about it like that. How can I enjoy this more? How can I be better, not to achieve the result, but to thrive while I'm doing it? Yeah. And what was your second question?
So do you have specific tools?
Yes. So the being profile is made specifically for coaching, and that's another thing I love about it. It is as a starting point to then go on a coaching journey with someone that will support you to look at these scores that you got and choose to change some of them, and then what are the things that you can start doing. So the first thing is always the awareness. With the awareness, you'll already change a whole lot of things in your life, and because you'll notice them, you'll see them. Like, you can't go back once you see something and you're aware of it. You can't unsee it. Exactly. And there is specific things. So for example, with awareness, there's a whole lot of exercises that you can start intentionally doing to understand how do other people perceive you, and when are you present and perceiving what's around you, and when maybe you're not. What are your blind spots? So there's work that you can do on that one, and of course in all the different ways of being. And it's going to be so personal to each of us, because behind each of those goals there's a whole story. And there's a web of perception, as we call them in ontology. It's like the stories and the perception you have of the world, and given that, if you start untapping and untangling that, that's where the transformation really is, and that's where you would start working on, okay, when you see this score, what comes up for you? What's the story you tell yourself with that score? What's possible if you shift that? And that's where you start working on it. So I wouldn't say like, okay, do the profile and then do these 3 steps and you're going to achieve something different. It's for you what's going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah. Okay, but it's opening up that awareness and then helping the person find ways or things that are going to help them to work towards what they want to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Now, I know that you wanted to talk about commitment. Is that one of the
Yeah, so I thought it would be really interesting with your audience and also the people I work with. I always find that commitment is a way of being that if we understand it and we start looking at it, we can really connect one with others, because when you talk about what you're committed to, it creates human connection, and also it creates that awareness of, okay, what is this person really committed to and wants to achieve? So let me just read you what the being profile says around commitment. So commitment is being dedicated or loyal to someone or something that is more important to you than anything that may stand in the way. When you are committed, you are considered willing, dependable, trustworthy, and loyal. Yes?
Yes.
So when you have a higher score, it indicates that when you put your mind to something, you stay engaged until the expected outcome is achieved. You will often visualize the end result in your mind's eye and can work consistently and diligently towards it without giving up. And others consider you to be dependable and passionate about the things you give your word to. So when you hear that, what comes up for you?
Well, it actually brought up a whole heap of emotion, to be quite honest.
I saw that, yeah.
Because I realised that I talk about making the decision and as one of the most important things. At some point, to achieve any goal in your life, you need to make a definite decision to do that. And you just made me realise that I knew this in my head, but I didn't, you know how subconsciously you know something, but you don't consciously put the two together. I just realised that part of making the decision is committing. You're making a commitment to do that. And so that brought up for me all the times in my life where I've achieved amazing things was because I was committed to that outcome. And I can't remember the exact terminology that you used when you read that out, but that was pretty much exactly how I felt at the time when I achieved those massive goals. So that just shows how important that commitment is a trait. What is the terminology?
A way of being.
Okay, so it just shows how important commitment can be in successfully achieving those, I call them BHAGs, those big, hairy, audacious goals that we set for ourselves.
That's awesome. And when you talk about it, it's not only what you're committed to, but it's being committed. When you're in that and you know, like, when you know that you are being committed to something and you're living through that commitment, it makes a huge difference. So it's not the setting the goal, it's committing in your heart of hearts to something that is more important to you than anything that may stand in the way.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, and I guess with the work that you do and that I do, I know what I'm committed to. I'm committed to that person in front of me, that whatever they're bringing to the table, they achieve it if it's really what their heart wants, and that will give them what they're looking for. So that's my commitment to people.
Yeah, and it's really important to understand what they're committed to. Then is the other side that I'm getting. That's the other message that I'm getting from this, and it's got to be something that they're emotionally invested in as well.
Absolutely. And not there with just going back to the profile, understanding how fear, anxiety, vulnerability, and care might get in the way of them achieving that, because they will all step back in the face of anxiety or in the face of fear, for example. Or when would they allow themselves to move forward, even if that anxiety is there, even if the fear is there?
Beyond all.
So beyond it.
So
Absolutely.
I use, this is exactly what I use, a quote actually from a book called Secret Code of Success by Noah St. John. And in that book, he says that you can't fix a why to problem with a how to answer. And that basically just means that if you're not doing what you want to do or what you know you need to do, there's a reason. And this is exactly the same thing. It's because you've got those, the fear or the anxiety that is stronger than the commitment that you have.
So absolutely, in terms that, what are you really committed to? Because when you might be saying that you want to achieve something, but then you might be committed to something else that might be deeper and more of a core belief of yours that you need to stay committed. And I think we've had this conversation before. What are you really committed to?
Yeah, so for me, with my clients, I have a lot of people who come to me. They come to me because they want to lose weight. However, in my experience, that's not actually what they really want. I'm not saying that they wouldn't like to be smaller, but that's not what is at the core of what they're trying to achieve. There's always a deeper reason. That's just the surface level thing that they're looking for.
Yeah.
So for them to be successful in achieving their goal, which the surface level goal is to lose weight, it comes down to a whole host of other things. They're really committing when they work with me. They're committing to themselves. They're committing to doing the inside work to get that inner transformation, which then naturally leads to the physical or the outside transformation. And sometimes that physical or outside transformation may not be as big as what they thought they wanted in the beginning. Sometimes it's just about learning to love themselves. And in fact, most cases is about learning to love themselves. But they have to be committed to themselves to get to that point, don't they?
Absolutely. And with that, it's committing to themselves in a way where you said before, like, they're not broken, they don't need fixing. It is committing to loving themselves and to putting themselves first. That's why, to something that's more important to you than anything that may stand in the way. And if that's you, if you're committing to you and to your health and to your well-being and to your self-love, then that's a different conversation than being committed to weight loss.
Absolutely, totally different conversation. So that's part of the conversation that I get people to have, because when they come to me, a lot of them don't even realise that that's the conversation that they need to be having.
Yeah.
So what has been your experience with commitment and your clients?
So it's funny because when you say that, I find that with my clients, we get to that same space pretty quickly where they always come because there's something in their professional life that they want to achieve or move towards or resolve. Maybe why they're doing what they're doing, if they're in the right role, if they're leading their teams in the way that they believe they could, what's possible. But when you start unpacking it, you get to the self-love, self-confidence conversation pretty quickly because it's at the core. Like, if you want to, for example, if you want to lead others, who do you need to be to lead those others? And if you're not comfortable, if you're confident, if you're doubting yourself every step of the way, then how can you inspire others to be led by you?
Yeah.
For example. And the same, if you're going to go and look for another role, what for? Like, that's the first question. What's that other role going to give you that you don't have today?
Yeah.
And you start unpacking that, and you get, again, pretty quickly, it doesn't give me the confidence that I'm good enough. All right, is the job going to give it to you, or are you going to give it to yourself?
Yeah.
And let's start there, and then let's find the role.
Once again, it comes back to looking inside rather than looking outside.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But we've been trying to look outside. We live in a world that tells that we need to have, we need to do, we need to accomplish this, we need to show off this and that. And we just haven't spent enough time. That's a big generalization, but as a society, we haven't given enough time and space to this conversation we're having right now. And I think that's why I think we're in totally different level of consciousness today as a society, where more of these conversations are happening all over the world. And
which is awesome. I totally love that. And glad to be a part of that conversation in any way that I can, as I know you are. So if somebody would like to do the Being profile and find out more about themselves that are going to open up these conversations, how do they do that?
So I would say they can go on the website beingprofile.com and look at it. They need an accredited practitioner. I'm one of the accredited practitioners that can take them through the profile. So they need to get in touch with me. That is info@lucyfaulconer.com. They send me an email. They say they want to do the profile, and then I'll explain what the steps are. But mainly it's clicking on a link that I send them from the website, from the system. They answer a whole lot of questions that takes them around 45 minutes. It's over 240 questions. So there's a lot in there. And with that, it gives them a report. And I would give them that report with a 1 hour and a half, like 90-minute feedback session, you call it. Okay. That is really a conversation. Okay, this is what's coming up. What are you taking from them, and run them through their results.
Okay.
From there.
So I will put all of the information for that in the show notes. So if anybody would like to do that, the information will be there. And if anybody has any questions after watching this episode, please put them in the comments or reach out to myself or Lucy. Once again, Lucy's details will be in the show notes. And I'd like to thank you for joining me again today, Lucy. As always, it's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. And as you can see, I'm passionate about this. So even if you're not thinking of doing the profile and you just want to talk more about it, I'm happy to. It's I'm passionate about it, and I'm really excited about the possibilities it's shown for me in my work and for the people I've worked with, in my clients. So yeah, anyone that just wants to know more, get in touch. I love it.
Definitely. I highly recommend you do that. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Remember to check out the show notes, and if you have any comments, feedback or suggestions, I'd love to hear them. If you've received value from this podcast, make sure to subscribe, and I'd love you to rate and review the show. Have a fabulous day.